Is your posture limiting your golf swing? Posture in general can give a clear indication to how the human being moves on a day-to-day basis and what movement patterns they typically apply. In turn, this can give a clue to the physical limitations and the overall movement capacity the individual has. In human movement, there are two types of postures referred to. The first one is static posture, which we typically see in how the golfer addresses the golf ball, whereas dynamic posture is how the individual alters their limbs, changes their overall posture and movement to get the club moving, which is obviously typically what we see throughout the whole motion where there's a change in that static and address posture. However, research shows that golfers who practice and play for multiple hours over a longer period of time typically adapt their postures to the golf swing. So what this means is we adapt how we move and how we address the ball in relation to what we think we're doing rather than to what we're actually doing. Here's a couple of real common postural adaptations that golfers might see and how this affects their movement. The key one we might see is forward head posture, so where the chin starts to migrate quite far forward. So when the golfer goes into their address position, if the setup's out and the weight's too far forward, the chin can start to lean out towards the ball. So we start to see that upper spine move forward and really round out. So we can see that chin stick out, and this automatically already changes the takeaway position as we're too far forwards, which impacts how the body will rotate. Another key one for golfers is how their trail side, the shoulder, so for a right-handed golfer, the right shoulder starts to depress and sit downwards. So as we often have the right hand underneath, and then there's natural tilt of the spine, the right shoulder, depending on ball position, depending on how we set the hips and the pelvis, can get very low and very tilted and stuck in that position with that hand underneath, which automatically limits the ability to rotate effectively. And a final one that actually links to those two other areas where we'll often see those three adaptations all as one is how the trail side of the rib cage gets very compressed. Because the golf swing is an asymmetrical sport and we load into that trail side of the rib cage, essentially when we're moving into that trail side, this side is shortening, and with a lot of poor movement mechanics, we can also get shortening of the trail side with that right side bend through the rib cage, which can then, again, limit that ability to rotate and create correct tilts, but probably more importantly, can lead to a lot of lower back problems and that compression of the rib cage through the ball and limit that freedom of rotation through impact. Now I'm going to show you what optimal golf posture should look like and how we can develop that to improve our overall movement capabilities and rotational freedom. From a static position, we are looking for some key alignment of key segments of the body. So ear through to the shoulder, down the trunk into the hip, knee and ankle. If there's a misalignment here, this can give that clear indication of where there's been some altered postural control. From here, adopting a correct golf posture will be much, much harder to do, and that will alter potentially how you move in the golf swing. Now I'm going to show you how you can adopt a more neutralized posture as in line with that static setup. First area we're now going to focus on is how to set the upper body, that upper spine, that middle spine, the cervical and the thoracic spine correctly, what that should feel like. I'm going to use a GravityFit golf band, which helps feedback the awareness of what this position should actually be. With the GravityFit band on, we can now feel the back part of the position where we're touching both shoulder blades and the middle of the spine. As we press the arms forward, this is where a lot of people will round out the upper back and move that head forward. What we want to try and do is feel like we're stood tall, where we can feel both shoulder blades touching and pulling back, and the head in an upright neutral position. What might happen is when we try and pull those shoulder blades back, you actually lift from the lower back and put the head forward. So what we're trying to create is arms fully up, shoulders pulling back. So we're almost trying to separate and pull those shoulder blades in, lift the chin back, and from here we should see that nice neutral postural position. If we was just to let the upper body go into a golf type posture without losing that shape, instantly we should see a much better upper body position that we're looking for. The awareness of the band helps give that instant feedback, and we can even learn to hit some balls with the band on to help control those scapulars, the shoulder blades, which will then play a key role in how the head moves and in how the rib cage can rotate around the spine. Secondly, we want to look how the lower body works through the hips and into the ground. What we see with good posture straight away is those feet will be in quite a neutral position, so they won't be excessively flared out, but at the same time we don't want them arrow straight. That little bit of external rotation with the feet helps create some freedom with how the hips are going to rotate. However, what we don't want to see is those knees in kind of a collapsed position, because we can see straight away the knees that are internally rotated then impact how the arches of the foot sit, which then impacts how the hips sit. And in turn, this can lead to poor movement away from the ball. To help with this, we're just going to use a small resistance band that we're going to place just above the knees. And from here, if we was to take a similar golf stance and just softly sit into the ground, so we've got a little bit of knee flex, what we should be able to do is feel some tension on the band. If we can't, we're obviously going to be in more of that shape. So we want to get the knees externally rotated a little bit more and feeling like there's some pressure through at least the middle of the foot, maybe for some even on the outside of the feet, rather than that inside and towards the toes. So we've got that nice set shape here with the GravityFit band. If we stand tall, soften the knees, keep some tension on the band, push the arms forward so we can feel those shoulder blades set and the head in the correct position, we can then just hinge over the hips into that golf setup. And what we should notice is we've got some really key neutral points. So we've got the knees in line with the feet, and we've got the shoulder line not forward, so not rounding over with the head forward, almost in line with the toes, hips sat back, some tension through the back of the legs, and some pressure into the ground with that nice neutral shape throughout. A final component that many of you golfers may want to do if you're struggling to get the right feel with how the hips should move into that setup position is simply taking a golf club, typically one of your longest clubs will be better, placing it down the spine where the hand is on the top of the grip and the head is touching the grip. Then the club is down the spine, touching the middle of the back and the bottom of the back. If we adopt that same postural position with the lower half, when we push those hips backwards, we should feel those 3 contact points. If the head comes away or we round, we'll lose those contact points. So it's the touch, soften, and the hinge of the hips pushing back slightly with the neutral spine position. So putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, we're going to take the club to place behind the ball. Just remember, for most this may feel a little bit awkward because obviously you're creating a postural position that is more optimal but less comfortable in the short term because it goes probably against what you naturally and instinctively want to do. That posture is a habit rather than a movement. So we're going to start with a club up, feeling like we've got the band around us, pulling those shoulders back so we can almost feel those scapulars set and the head backwards. We're going to make sure those feet are neutral with that band feel around the knees, and we're going to then slowly hinge down and place the club behind the ball. Depending on how far away you are, without changing posture, you can simply move a little bit closer, which will make you a bit taller and less of a hinge, or further back, which will create more of a hinge. But the other contact points do not change. If you want to use the Gravity Band to help give you that better postural awareness, there's a link in the description with a 10% discount code.